Thank you again.
Can you start the recording before? You're good to go.
Fantastic.
This is a call to order of a regular meeting of the Personnel, Pension, and Insurance Committee of the MDC, Monday, July 29th, 2024. Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do. I just want to confirm, I see Commissioners Desai, Adel, Lester, and Stuber are attending remotely. Are there any other commissioners attending remotely? Yes.
Okay. Are there any public comments relative to agenda items?
Judy Allen, West Hartford. This is regarding the agenda item having to do with the employee survey. And I believe that this survey should be as unbiased as possible, just like it's inappropriate for commissioners to get involved in advocating for a particular employee who might have complaints. I believe that commissioners should not be involved in any part of the creation and implementation of what the consultant recommends. It is, of course, very important that commissioners be fully informed of the outcome at the end of the year so commissioners can make decisions based on the outcome. I would like this resolution to include who will be the MDC's contact person or persons to make this very clear from the onset. Thank you.
Once again, are there any public comments relative to agenda items? Move to item 3, approval of meeting minutes of June 24th, 2024 and July 2nd, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Are there any suggested deletions, revisions? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Moving to item 2, consideration of potential action, approval of Amazing Workplace for Employee Climate Study. Do we have any comments? It's open for discussion.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Yes.
Kelly Shane, Chief Administrative Officer here at the MDC. Before you is a resolution to accept the quote from Amazing Workplace for conducting the climate survey. The proposal, the quote included not only conducting the initial climate survey, but also as a software as a service. It is to provide us with a 1-year subscription to the survey platform, which gives us unlimited use of the software to conduct other informal or other opportunities to conduct smaller surveys, spot surveys, different types of surveys throughout that year's subscription. So that's what's before you, and I don't know if you have any questions or concerns.
Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Curry. Kelly, could you tell us what you believe will be the role of MDC and in particular HR and your staff will be in this process?
I think when Amazing Workplaces was here describing their software, one thing they talked about was they would conduct the survey, but they have a laundry list of surveys to choose from. But they do need support in providing employee data, such as email addresses the demographics that we want to be able to capture in our reporting. They would need to have some input on communications. They would draft the communications, they would conduct the kickoff meetings, but obviously there's logistics and other things that would need to be coordinated, and I would assume that would be done by our HR staff or admin staff as appropriate.
But Amazing Workplace essentially would be conducting the survey, collecting the questionnaires and doing the statistical analysis.
Well, the software does that for us. The surveys are there. They have multiple, I think they provided the list of types of surveys that they have that include all of the questions that are in there. They did talk to us briefly about, review of those survey questions, et cetera, but the surveys are already developed based on the type of survey that you want. I think the one that we wanted was the happiness survey and identifying what our employees, how are they, what is the climate survey is really judging the employees' happiness to be here. What are their issues? There's opportunities for them to have that conversation, as Sean from Amazing Workplace discussed with the PP&I committee last time he was here and presenting. I think we also included in open text a copy of that proposal that he had presented to the PP&I committee prior, which kind of goes through how the survey is conducted, but it's really done through the software and through providing the demographic information that we would have to populate the information. It's all obviously provided to the employee anonymously, but the demographic information that we decide to put in there will provide the data that comes back into the survey, which then gives us the data for the analysis of that survey that gets spit out in reports right from the survey, and they're there to analyze and provide feedback on the reporting that comes out of it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'm still not sure I understand, though, the survey itself is, I thought that, since it was our proposal from this committee, that we would have, an opportunity to see what what kind of survey, what we're asking and so forth. I think that commissioners certainly have a responsibility to understand the climate at the MDC. I think that's one of our jobs. So, am I understanding this right? That that the survey questions are already created and we don't know what they are, and we don't know. That staff. You said you picked like a happiness one versus something else. We don't know what the other ones are. So. Or do we?
We provided the list of types of surveys that was requested at the last PP&I meeting, and they were uploaded to OpenText and provided to commissioners a week ago.
Okay. Well, I would say that I'm not satisfied that that's a good way to do it. I think we need to at least have an opportunity to discuss that. It's provided in OpenText. It's just a chance to read it, and then that's it.
Well,
we don't have a chance to talk about it, and I understand that, but,
Well, the presumption on my part.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
services for providing their software and their expertise and train our staff in different areas. And then we have to do however we want to use it. Am I correct?
yes.
Okay. If that's the case, did they limit you in number of hours? How many hours they will have to provide services? What are their expectations? That maybe we will provide you 100 hours of services doing this, doing that, and this is the software. I'm asking our president.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. I think Kelly already mentioned this, and the presentation was very clear, right? They're going to do a survey for MDC's company. They know how many employees we have. They've committed to doing all of the survey for all of the employees for that price, the price that's been proposed. They plan to also do a 1 or 2 day presentation to the staff so they understand the process. But I think we've been pretty clear. I think the misperception is there's no physical persons talking to MDC employees, right? The software does the talking. The communication with staff is to the software. The consultants, what they do is they interpret the answers and they give guidance to staff and to the board as terms of here's what their interpretation of the answers to these questions are. And it helps us, it might suggest additional questions, it might suggest us doing different things, different ways, but the software is what's actually communicating by email to the employees. It's not MDC MDC staff talking to the staff.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, excuse me, let me finish here. I think that we're not really talking about the same thing here.
Can you turn on your speaker?
It's on.
Yeah, thank you.
The issue here basically is what is that instrument that is going to be used to ask the employees questions? What does that look like? What are the questions that are contained within that instrument? That's really what we're talking about here more than anything else. I think that before there is a distribution or a broadcasting of that survey, the people on this committee need to take a look at that and make a determination as to whether or not that conforms with our understanding of what we want the scope and scale of that climate survey to be. Now, once we have decided what that instrument is, then there is the process of how it is distributed to the employees to take the survey and then to return that survey for the appropriate processing within the, I'm going to say, the software package that we have. That's my understanding of how this is to work. I was not under the impression that there was going to be someone talking to the employees. There are several things that are non-starters as far as I'm concerned. One, the employees' anonymity will be preserved, basically. Number two, basically, that survey will contain the questions that basically we collectively have looked at and have approved. That is not something that staff alone in and of itself is going to do.
Understand?
Yes.
But in spite of that, basically, there is somebody sitting in their office doing something. And I want to make sure, I agree with the concept. I agree with the proposal. However, I don't want to find out later on that, oh, we spend more time providing you the support for your system. So that was the question.
Okay.
Otherwise, I agree with the whole concept, and I think this is the right way to do it.
Mr. Slim.
I thought you characterized it well, Mr. Chairman, and in response to what Scott said, I didn't think that anybody was going to be talking to employees. That's not what the question is. Both Kelly and Scott have said that this company has made a presentation to staff. I like to have the presentation made to us too. I mean, we've appropriated the money for this. And I'd like to be reassured that what we were looking for is what we're going to get. And I don't feel that way. No, I mean, if we're going to read anything in open text, I think the staff got a lot more than reading in open text. They got a presentation.
Commissioner
I don't know why
Salemi?
I don't know why we can't. So.
Thank you.
If I may, the PPNI committee right here, last committee meeting, received a presentation from Amazing Workplace. It wasn't staff was here, but the committee received the presentation. I just made sure they gave us that presentation so that we could upload it for not only the committee to review at their leisure, but also so that the rest of the board could see it, because I believe last meeting, Commissioner Taylor, you had mentioned that you wanted the board to also have a look at it since it was a board appropriation.
Yes.
So that's why I made sure to get a copy of that presentation to put it in open text, and I believe John sent it out to all commissioners.
Yeah, I understand that. I just want to make sure it's clear what I'm trying to say, okay? And I'll leave it at that. You guys can decide whatever you want with that. So I get this in open text, and the only way I can read it electronically on my iPad at home. And that's it. I don't get this together with other commissioners. I don't get to discuss this with other commissioners. I can't get a hard copy anymore, and I'm gonna, you know, it's one of my favorite complaints, and you know, you're gonna hear it again. I can't get a hard copy of anything anymore. I have to print it myself at home on my printer with my paper, and I'm still an uncompensated, unreimbursed commissioner of this, but I'm expected to do all of this stuff, and staff can get a hard copy of it anytime they want because they can just print it here. But I don't have a hard copy in front of me, and you don't have one in front of you, and we can't discuss this presentation that we read about in open text. I would like to have this committee decide which way we're going to go with this because it was our proposal from the beginning. I think we'll probably wind up exactly where you're at right now, but it's not our decision yet. It wasn't our decision. So anyway, I'm through, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Avedenia?
I'm a little confused here. So, number one, I wasn't exactly happy about this. I don't think we need it, but if the committee thinks we need it, that's great. Let's try it. However, now we're saying we're happy with it. We got somebody. The dollars are right. They know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a lot longer than all of us probably sitting here, for all I know. And now we're saying, well, we want to see what they're going to have to say. But that's their job. That's what we're paying them for. And if they're talking to our human resources people and they can tell them what we're generally looking for, then I think we should go with that and leave them alone and let them do their job and see what we get for answers. Number one, I find it very interesting that we get it on our iPad way before this meeting. Certain commissioners haven't read it. If they had read it, they could have put notes down and came to this meeting and talked about it and had a conversation about it, but they didn't. So now we're going to hold that off. And I just don't understand. I really don't. And the main question I have is, this is going off to current employees, not terminated employees, people that are currently working for the MDC. Am I correct on that? That's correct.
Okay, that's all I have to say. I just think, if we're not going to, I'm going to vote no if we're not just going to let them do their job and do what they have to do.
Well, you, as a commissioner, you have a right to express your opinions on such matters. And no one's preventing or precluding you from doing it. But the fact of the matter is that I think that there is, I would say, a consensus that if we are going to do this, that we do this right. And that we basically look very carefully at the instrument in question
that is going to be distributed. And that we have a chance to discuss it. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay.
But again, we got this information, what, a week ago?
Well, we have not seen the actual instrument that is going to be distributed to the employees to
No,
take
but-
the survey.
The stuff that was sent to us that I read, that every,
Well, I mean, what's your point about that? I
the
mean,
point is, if there were questions, we could probably ask some questions now if everybody had read it, and that's what we come to these meetings for, but
Are you not-
nobody read it.
Do you not understand what I'm saying? Do I have to spell it out for you?
Yeah, I don't think I'm that as intelligent, so please do, because I don't understand it.
What I said basically is that the employees, when they take the survey, there is going to be an instrument. The instrument basically is the survey itself that contains the questions, right? All I am saying basically is that I think that this committee basically should examine, take a look at the questionnaire that is going to be distributed and take a look at it and see basically if in its infinite wisdom, it thinks basically that it covers the subjects or topics that it thinks that this committee wants answers to.
Okay. And I'm not gonna say that you don't understand, because I know you do, that you have a company that we're gonna charge us, who does this for a living, which probably knows a lot more than all of us together. Let them do their job. I don't think, and I agree with Judy Allen.
Yeah, but they don't know, this.
Excuse me, I was still talking.
Well,
I was still
well,
talking.
well,
Just because
shut
you're the
up for a
chairman
minute,
doesn't mean you can
because-
shut me off. I'm not gonna let you do that.
Well, I'm shutting you off
Judy
because
Allen
basically
is right.
You're doing,
The
look,
commissioners should not be involved in that,
why?
period.
Why?
Because we shouldn't. Let
Why?
the-
What? No, wait a minute.
Why should we?
No, why? Wait a
Let
minute.
the
Wait,
let the
no,
people do their job.
Wait a minute. That has nothing to do. As commissioners, we are responsible for setting policy in this institution, right? And basically, we have the right to ask questions, okay? And essentially, what we are attempting to do here is we are attempting to ask our employees a number of questions about their current, I'm going to call it mindset here at this institution, okay? Nothing more, nothing less. Now, you know, there's nothing magical about a climate survey. They do them all the time. Why do you think I distributed the Yukon survey? So that people could see basically what the nature of a climate survey was about and what was the purpose of such a survey. Now, you know, we're not talking about reinventing the science, all right? But at least basically, I think that it is appropriate for us to have the right to look at the instrument that essentially is going to be distributed by someone that we hired. They were hired to work for us, to survey our employees, to answer questions that we may or may not have. Nothing more, nothing less. That's all.
Well, seems to be more than less, but okay, fine.
Yes?
I kind of know what you're saying, but the thing is, let's say we saw all the questions and we alter one. You don't have any concerns about that? Like the commissioner has, the whole point was it's not to have the commissioners involved at all. I'm kind of with him. We're paying him 25 grand. I have no idea what questions I'd ask. And I mean, the idea if we had some input and changed it, I just think that would throw the whole thing out. But I don't know, let them, you know, it's only 25 grand. It's not the end of the world. Just, you know, let's do it. And if it doesn't come out good, we do something else next year. I don't know. But I'd be a little concerned about altering the questions. That's the only thing I have.
Slimmy?
I agree with you. I'm not looking for an opportunity to create questions.
Yeah.
You know, say that, oh, I don't like this one, I want to change this question.
No.
I just want to know what the questions are. And if it seems like those questions are, you know, have some sort of, you know, logical progression to understanding the climate here at the MDC, that's all I'm asking. And I'd like us to discuss that. And to have everybody here agree, yeah, that's the one we want to do.
I mean,
I don't understand why that's a problem.
Kelly, can they print out the questions for us? Is that something they can do? I don't know.
Well, I think that they could have come here and presented the questions
Mr.
to us,
Chairman.
and,
Not the 25
I'm sorry.
grand.
and we could go through it.
Let's through me, please. Mr.
You are getting the tools to do your job. And your job is being done by your own staff. So if when they develop the questionnaire, if you want to take a look at it, staff can provide you what type of question we are asking. What's wrong in that?
Staff is not here to do
Staff's
our
not-
job. We do our
No, no,
job.
yes,
Staff
no,
does their
no.
job.
It is not
That's
staff is
different.
doing the
There's
job.
two different
I
things.
think you guys misinterpreting this is the tool they are giving you. You are using it, and your user is going to be through your staff. So if we did not have hired consultant, staff would have done the same thing what you want to get done. At that time you ask question, what do you want to do, etc. Not knowing, nobody, staff or none of us knowing everything about what they do. I think it is help they are providing, and you get the tools. That's what it is. Simple.
I don't know. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, but I think what I heard tonight is that, commissioners can't be trusted with something like this. That's what I heard.
I don't.
And I got that message.
Yeah.
I got it.
I
Thank you.
I heard that, but essentially, there's no truth to it.
No need to explain, Mr.
and it's-
Chairman, because sometime, because of their tenure here, every time they come in late and then question things, what is done. And my point is, sir, there are many people equally knowledgeable, not about your corporation here, but when it comes to business. So let's talk. We decided last meeting, and that's why it is here. And do we have a proposal? We can make a motion.
Well, before we do that, I just want us to be clear so that we have an understanding as we move forward. And unless I'm not hearing correctly, there is going to be an instrument, once again, that is going to be distributed to the employees. All I am saying here basically is that this committee ought to have the right to look at that instrument. Nothing more, nothing less. Right? Mr. Desai?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the way I'm looking at it is we have hired consultants and we have said numerous times that they are the ones who have done this many times in their lifetime and they are the most qualified people. What I read from here from the scope is it says topics for use in surveys include job and work and career, communication, meaning, empowerment, growth, balance, reward, safety, belonging, enjoyment. Additional topics can be added or customized to meet your needs. I mean, these are the topics that they're going to cover. Now, as far as the questionnaire is concerned, I mean, it's probably, at least in my opinion, we should leave it up to the consultants to make sure that they follow their protocols as to what has been done in the past, what type of questions they ask, and things like that, and let this be a totally impartial study, so that when something is presented to the commissioners at our meetings, then we can take that information and decide, and maybe further ask further questions. How did they do it? What was the method, and things like that, and make sure that the information we have is satisfactory to us, and then we decide what steps should be taken to improve whatever the topics or whatever the conclusion is. So I think, in my opinion, we have discussed this to nauseam, right? I mean, we have been discussing this for how many meetings? We should go ahead, look at what the consultant has presented, let them work with the staff and give it to us, an impartial study where we don't have any input, I mean, we did have input in coming up with, what we were looking at and all that. We looked at the scope, we looked at their presentations and things like that. So we know what it is. So I think it's time that we move on and let's do, let's empower them and let's see what they come up with. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Lastly, if I recall from the presentation I gave us, I don't think the questions were like straight, clear questions, right? I kind of thought they asked a question, if a guy goes this way, the questions would go that way, and they weren't so, I'm not sure if you can get a list of questions, right? Isn't that the way I understood it? Like if someone says, I don't like this, then more questions go that direction, so I don't know. But I don't have a problem with either way, but to me, I'm good with these guys. Let's move forward, yeah. It's not the end of the world. If we don't like it, next year we do something else. I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone. There may be a way to get to a comfortable point for everybody, and that would be to take action on this vendor. But in picking up on what Commissioner Desai just quoted from the proposal, was they were going to develop a questionnaire and then add any other or consider any other input that would meet the particular needs or requests or wants, for lack of a better term, of the commission, right?
Yeah.
Of PPI. So there's a way to get to both those places, right? And I'm not suggesting what your result's going to be, but if you're to move forward with this vendor, is then to consider as a group what you might request that they expand their scope of questionings to include other things, as Commissioner Desai said, that's in their proposal. It's anything else that the commission, this committee thinks is appropriate to meet their needs, right? So I suggest that you might act on them, whatever you want to do, and if you were to approve them, hypothetically, approve them, then also with a caveat that you can submit other questions or other information or wants, for lack of a better term, in terms of the questionnaire to move this thing forward. And you can do that either before or after, you can do that as the PPI committee, before or after the board acts on, if they should act on August, I think it's August 5th is the next board meeting. But leave that open so that you can have that contribution that you're seeking without getting into every detail of the questions that they as professionals may request, but still get your input into what you want that survey to look like.
Fine.
Their proposal says that topics they listed, and then it is not limited to. So should you come up later on something, you can always add on.
That's perfectly fine, all right? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think that captures what at least I think is appropriate here. That we have someone that's going to do it. And I know people get hysterical when I say this. We will take a look at what they are then going to distribute so that everyone can take a look at it.
Can I make a motion?
And then once it gets to the employees, they've got something that everyone has looked at, and there shouldn't be any questions in terms of the results, right? Mr. Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Commissioner Desai said it best, and I'm not sure what he said, what Councilor Stone said, and what you just said are all the same thing. I absolutely believe that this committee should have input on what the topics will be. Do we like green shirts, orange shirts, red shirts, whatever it is, and decide throughout a lot of categories. And we tell them what those categories are and let the experts determine what the questions will be and where the program will lead those questions onto other questions. I firmly believe we should deal with the topics and not with the questions. We leave that to the experts. And I'm ready to move on if this committee is.
Do we have an appropriate motion?
I move a motion to adopt it.
Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Can I just
Yeah.
hear can I just hear the motion, I mean, the resolution, somebody can state what we're about to vote on?
Yeah, read it.
This is John Merrill. The resolution that was included with the agenda is resolved that staff shall execute a sales order with Amazing Workplace Incorporated for a one-year subscription for Amazing Workplace Incorporated's Employee Happiness Management System software as a service to administer a district employee climate study.
Can you explain to me how that responds to what Chairman Curry said or anyone else said about, with respect to us being able to discuss the topics or the survey itself or something here at an open meeting? I'm not talking about a clandestine meeting here. I'm talking about an open session, so everybody knows what we're talking about. How does that respond to it?
If I may?
Yes.
The scope allows for it. Their scope that they presented to us that you have, you can read the scope. If you read the scope of work that they presented and we provided, it specifically says that we will work with them, and the tool is a website. So it's a database, a website that our employees will be given a link to, and they will go in and they will complete the survey. But obviously, we're going to work with them to refine the categories to the chairman's point. We'll be able to provide them with those categories, and we should be able to, even in an open forum, provide you with a demo of that survey, if you would like.
I don't think that answers the question. So it sounds like that's all going to get determined and you're just going to show it to us. I thought that we were going to get a chance to look at it and basically say, okay, well, that's the direction we want to go in, or that's not the direction we want to go in. We want to go in a different direction. I still don't see where does that happen? When you say we, I'm sure what you mean, Julian, is that staff is going to get this stuff.
No, sir.
And you're gonna show it to us, but when is it? Where's the opportunity for us to comment on it and say that's what we were looking for, or that's not what we were looking for?
Kelly,
That's my question.
Thank you. If I may answer that for Kelly. So the presentation was very clear as to what the proposal was. It identified the opportunity to look at the categories, and there's a whole list which Kelly provided. We will bring back the consultant at the next meeting, whenever that's appropriate, and we will go through the categories. To the chairman's point, we will go through the categories of questions, not questions, but the categories of questions to be asked, and we will make sure that PPI is satisfied with the categories of the work. I think Commissioner had mentioned the science of how they ask the question and how they move from one side to the other of a question, trying to refine the answer to the question. But we will definitely bring the consultant back in and go through those categories and make sure PPI is happy with the categories before we move forward.
Does that mean that essentially staff gets to do what PP&I, you're telling us, can't do? That they get to fiddle with the questions?
Just to be clear, Scott Jellison, CEO, the UConn report, the board at UConn and the president at UConn was not involved in the survey. Scott Jellison, CEO, will not be involved in the survey whatsoever. To the chairman's point, neither should the board, right? So we're not going to be, the presentation we had was they have thousands and thousands and thousands of surveys that they've done and refined the questions over years, not just this one company, but the industry. So there's questions that have been refined to get to the root of the question. I think a bunch of commissioners said tonight, they're the experts. We should not, staff will not be involved in developing questions. I don't believe the board should be either. We're happy to be engaged with the topics to be discussed, but I, Scott Jellison, and my staff will not be setting questions for this survey.
I asked the question, Mr. Chairman, so, and I haven't suggested that they would be at all, and, or that we would be. But I'll just go back to what we heard in the beginning was that the suggestion was that what seemed appropriate from what our comments were and what we were looking for is a happiness type survey. That's basically what you said. I'd just like to see that. All I want to do is see that. Okay, what does that look like? And I just want to be reassured that, yeah, that is what we're looking for. That's all I'm asking. Okay, so if we can have a presentation of that, that's like a live presentation where we can talk about it and ask a question about it, that's fine. I'm not trying to create a question or any of that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to insert myself as a professional in this because I'm not a professional in that. So I just like to have that happen. I mean, we're the ones that asked for a survey and we went to Board of Finance and funded a survey. I'd just like to be reassured that the one that Julie mentioned, and I have every reason to believe that it's exactly what we wanted. I just want to see it. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe I can offer a solution to the concerns we're hearing tonight. And typically, if this committee were to approve this motion, it would appear on the next district board agenda. So possibly, and I'd ask council if this is allowable, but if we were to table this, you would call for a special meeting with the only item on the agenda, this very topic of climate study. And Amazing could present the topics to all that they have to offer and present that to us, and we can discuss those and pick and choose the ones we want and then take action, take it off the table and take action on either approving or not approving. That way we're not 2 months out.
I have no objection to that. Does anyone else?
Is there a motion to?
Do I have a motion to do that?
I move the table.
You want to table to a date certain, John? Do you have a proposal for a special meeting of the PPI committee?
Were you suggesting prior to the board meeting on the 5th?
Oh, no,
no.
but prior to 2 months out.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, then we have the next regular PPI meeting, but we don't know.
When is it?
When, if Amazing Workplace would be available. It's,
You can have it anytime you want. Special, you can have anytime you want.
no, I know, but if we can't postpone to a certain, I mean, we could pick a date, but if they're not available, then they're not available.
Right, we'd have to wait and coordinate with them.
Well, can we find out
We can
what their
coordinate that
availability
with the-
would be?
We can find out tomorrow. Yeah.
Do that, please? And then we could schedule a special
Yes.
meeting for that particular
Solves
item and
everybody's
deal with
problem.
that.
Everybody gets.
You could give us some dates that you guys are available. It would be helpful. And then we can,
Well, I think it would be appropriate that we find out what their availability.
I'm sure they will accommodate us.
Well, then let's,
When's the next PPI meeting?
August 26th.
well, how about sometime in the next 2 weeks? Is that
Both
account-
Jamie and I are on vacation for the next week and the week after. And so,
As long as you do it before the next
Okay, well
September
then,
board meeting, you know what I mean?
well then, what, oh, I got you. Why don't we do it just before the September board meeting?
Yeah, the August 26th meeting.
Okay.
August 26th, the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
PP&I meeting.
Or, yes, because
Shoot
then
for
we-
that.
Yeah,
August
okay.
26th.
For some reason, I thought they meant bi-monthly. So it's
No, every month.
Yeah, I know.
Hope.
All right, do I have an appropriate motion to table this matter?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I think there may have been a motion already on the floor,
I think.
so I don't know if you have to have a friendly amendment to
Did you
that.
make a motion?
well, no, it's not.
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yes, someone made a motion
It was,
because Buddy Salimi wanted to hear what the motion was.
Yeah, Patel made a motion to approve the resolution.
Yes,
Well, it was to table.
the table.
I
This
moved
is
the
the
table.
It was to table.
Move to table.
We're going to table it to the August 26th
Yes,
PPI meeting, right? So if,
So it is
so
appropriate.
long as that's a friendly amendment to Commissioner Patel's motion?
Right, that's what I was saying.
Yep,
a
thank
friendly
you.
amendment.
Thank you, Commissioner Lester. Commissioner Patel, do you consider that postponement to the August 26th PPI meeting as a friendly amendment to your motion to table? Okay. And the second was Commissioner Drake, I believe. You're okay?
Sure.
All those in favor, let's have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes, okay. Moving to item 5, consideration and potential action, employee medical insurance option, or opt-out, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jamie Harlow, Director of HR. What you have before you is a resolution to, it's really what it comes down to is more of an equity issue. We've, for a number of years, since 2015, have been offering a medical plan opt-out for our exempt and excluded groups. A lot of what we've been working on with the unions is to equalize a lot of those benefits. This is one of those outlying areas where they were not equal. It has not been a benefit that has been extended to the union groups. So I had been having, I have very regular meetings with the unions, and we have spoken with all 3 of the bargaining units, and 2 of the 3 are interested in participating in this opt-out. A lot of them, we have employees who are already opting out. They're already doing this, but they're not getting basically the credit for it. So this was an opportunity, again, to equalize what we're offering to district employees. And again, we do have 2 unions that are on board with this. So what's before you is some tweaks to the existing language just to make sure we're kind of dotting our T's and dotting our I's and crossing our T's with this benefit. I don't know if anyone
If I
has.
may to add to that, Jamie, so this is very similar to a lot of employers. So basically, if an MDC employee has a spouse that has a medical plan that may be better than the MDC's medical plan, they can choose to be, a participant with that medical plan. A lot of times it's the state or federal government, or maybe some of the towns. And so that employee, as an E&E, we've been giving that employee $2,000, $1,000 per person. So yourself, $1,000 for a spouse, another $1,000, $2,000 over the year. So it's divided by quarters. We have not offered that to the union employees, and although we've tried as part of a negotiation. But the one important thing about this saves the MDC a lot of money. But in most cases, the MDC employee chooses the spouse's insurance because it's better and it's cheaper than the MDC. So as Jamie mentioned, in 2 of the unions, 1026 and 3713, they have agreed to this because most of the employees are already using it, but they're not getting the $2,000. Our largest union, which is 184, has chosen to not accept this offer. They do have about 12 employees that are presently on their spouse's medical, so they're not going to benefit from the $2,000, but we'll work with them and try and hopefully, it's more of an equity issue. We're not offering to give them something in addition to them accepting this. This is in a sense, a freebie. It's $2,000.
Why aren't they taking free money?
They want to use it for negotiation purposes. I don't know. But the important point is we have offered it as an equity issue. We've offered it to all of them. 2 of them have taken it. Hopefully 184 will agree at some later point to accept this. And if they do, we'll bring this right back to PP&I.
Does anyone have any comments or concerns? Mr. Curry?
Can I just say that fairly common practice throughout the municipalities and I think state government as well, so.
And is this what we're proposing here? Is this standard in terms of its format and complies basically with sort of the industry or this type of provision or what have you?
Yes, this is. We've also worked with our benefit consultant, and everything we're offering is very consistent with what other employers offer. And it's not uncommon, especially since the Affordable Care Act, that employers are going in this direction to take some of the liability off the medical plans and put it on the spouse's employer if they have access. In no way does this deny an employee the option of enrolling in the medical plan. It just provides an option for those that may have a better option.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, the challenge, the state system has changed dramatically over the years and continuing to change. So most likely, and I know employees today of the state, their spouses will not receive OPEB retirement medical. So, for example, someone might choose to take this 2,000, and they might be a new employee, and they might stay for 25 years at the MDC and get this 2,000 every year. But right before they retire, they go back on medical because their spouse's insurance doesn't have spouse medical. So we understand that. But the important point is for the MDC, again, it's a fairness issue. We're giving an employee $2,000. It's a huge benefit to the MDCs. As you know, we pay cash for all of our medical. So there's a benefit to us for as long as that employee stays on the spousal insurance. And like I said, if 184 does come forward, we're happy we'll bring that right back to PP&I as soon as we have that discussion with them.
Any further discussion? May I have the appropriate motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second it, Commissioner Lester, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Item 6, discussion of retention of outside labor counsel. This is a matter that I think warrants discussion, and we should take a very careful look at this. And I say this for several reasons. One, we have a kind of interesting conflict situation, at least in my eyesight, where essentially counsel, and I don't want to cast any aspersions on anyone, but in the process of the labor negotiations, and particularly with regards to raises and things like that, indirectly in a sense, they're negotiating their own raise. And I think that it's appropriate for us to be very careful about this and essentially have someone or retain someone who does not have skin in the game in that sense, so that we can very clearly comfortable and not have to face any criticism or concerns on the part of third parties that there may be a potential conflict there. The other thing basically is that I think that it is appropriate for us to have outside counsel with regards to negotiating labor contracts insofar as senior staff is concerned. I think that we need to be very careful about that, be very thoughtful about that.
Chairman, who is proposing it, and is it committee's decision or chairman is proposing it?
It's a discussion matter.
Pardon me?
It's a discussion matter. I'm proposing this for our discussion, for our to take a look at it.
So you, as a chairman, propose this for discussion?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Salimi?
I would add for the benefit of commissioners, and there are some commissioners may not be aware or maybe are newer and not aware that like many other municipalities that we have used Labor Council in the past. And actually for a good number of years, and my recent, I reviewed through the Board of Finance. I mean, I looked at the budget that we had in the past. We certainly had a separate Labor Council, I think beginning in 2011 or maybe even before that, but up until 2020 maybe, or 19 or 20. So it's not new, and over those years, the expense looks like it was somewhere in the neighborhood of, I would say, on an average of $65,000 every other year, something in that neighborhood. It wasn't every year, but every other year was about 60 to 65,000, something in that neighborhood. So I would support what the chairman has asked about. I think that we made use of that council and that it worked very well for the district. I think that it puts the issues that come before the MDC, the labor issues that come before it in the hands of experts in the same way that we were talking about before, that these are people who I obviously do this for a living and trained in how to do it. So would support what the chairman has said and suggest that we could ask for a budget for that in the upcoming budget through Board of Finance. I would say that we could ask for 60 or 60,000 for a 2-year period as we had in the past.
Mr. Chairman, I agree to a point that smaller municipalities had that process and they go out higher because they have only one person, legal lawyer in their department. City of Hartford at one time, we had dozens. And generally decision was made by our corporation council when they needed such a help or not. So my question is there an agreement by our council that he thinks that he needs that help or he doesn't need it?
Thank you, if I might.
Mr. Redpath?
Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things. Number one, as to Commissioner Taylor's suggestion, that's probably the wrong word, concern about a conflict of me in terms of participating in labor negotiations. To think that what benefits me, I'm going to put the district as a whole, the 400 and some odd employees of the MDC, in a position to benefit just so I can is in my mind, and I don't mean to disparage, it's nothing to do with the chairman, it's absurd. But that being said, if going forward, this body and the board wants to retain separate counsel to negotiate contracts with our unions, that's entirely up to them. But don't do it because you believe that somehow I've benefited myself at the expense of this board or the full board, or this committee or the full board, number one. That being said, again, we have contracts that are running through, Jamie, September, or 2024? No, beyond that. When's our next contract negotiations, 26? 26. So it may be a little premature to retain counsel for contract negotiations that's going to be 2.5 years down the road. But that being said, again, that's up to this board to recommend to this committee to recommend to the full board. As to the second justification for hiring labor counsel, we were charged and accepted the responsibility to do as best we can to bring certain matters in-house at the MDC. We have lawyers who are competent to handle labor issues, certainly up to a certain level and beyond, but certainly as to a certain level in the grievance procedure. And we've used in-house counsel to achieve that, primarily John Myrtle, but also others in the office, including myself, have been engaged on labor issues and saved significant, I think it's more than $60,000 or $65,000 every 2 years, because as I look at the budget and looked at the budgets for labor counsel over the past several years, it's well beyond that number. But that being said, I'm not going to quibble about the amount. The question is whether you want to spend that money for outside labor counsel or retain it in-house. And John's and my staff have been very successful in working out and resolving labor issues at the lowest level to eliminate and minimize the exposure of the MDC. So, for example, several years ago, we had any number of, and I can get you a detail, I have it here, but I don't want to bore you with the details, but any number of CHRO complaints, of grievances, et cetera, that were pending before the MDC. We have no CHRO complaints presently. We have one grievance that is not ripe for adjudication, but which has been filed most recently. But other than that, there's no other grievances that are before the MDC administration. So, and those that were handled in the past were handled at a very minimal exposure, resolved or decided in our favor through the efforts of John and others in my staff. So,
And HR.
And HR staff, excuse me, and HR staff. Thank you, Scott. But in terms of the need for outside counsel on labor, I don't see one. If it ever comes to the point, as you pointed out, Commissioner Patel, that there's an issue that rises to the level, and we've had in the past, we retained outside counsel from New York City to handle the defense of the Aaron Ryan case. We retained outside counsel in the past to handle the defense of the John Zinzarella case. We've handled outside counsel in the past, in my history here, for one grievance matter that was handled at arbitration by outside counsel at quite frankly, at an expense so that paled in comparison to the expense of other. But that's, I'm not complaining about the expense, but it's just comparatively, it was, we saved some money there. And that's not to say that the ultimate goal is to just save money, right? We want to defend the actions of our administration, defend our actions of our commissioners and staff, and we've done that successfully at a reasonable, if not minimal, cost. So I don't think it's necessary. Again, that's up to this board to decide, and I respect the comments from Commissioner Salemi and Commissioner Taylor. As to Commissioner Taylor's, it's a little early for that, but I get it. You know, the perception is sometimes worse than the reality. You know, in this case, it is worse than the reality, but I get it. And on the other side, it's really not necessary. But thank
Can
you,
I,
Mr.
since
Chairman.
that was addressed to both of us, can I answer that question? I was addressed to both the CEO and district council, right? So I'm negotiating the union contracts with my staff and with support of legal. So the agenda item is directed towards me and the district council. So I'd like to just address this. 2015, I became the CEO, and we had outside counsel. And we had outside counsel prior to that. And what I learned with outside counsel, it cost a lot of money. And the majority of the concerns was, all their concern was, I gave this town 3%, 2%, 4%. But they didn't understand the magnitude of the concerns and the problems with the MDC. Outside counsel did not create multitasking job descriptions. Myself and my staff did.
the outside counsel doesn't understand the internal workings of how you can save money. We've talked a lot about saving money, not by finding more revenue, but by becoming more efficient. And outside district counsel did not understand the inner workings of how do you make a company more efficient. So to district counsel's point, we spent $60,000 in 2018 for a CHRO complaint that we settled for $8,000. Okay, so I fully support if I'm negotiating union contracts and we settle on a certain percentage, I fully support making sure that the board is comfortable because my contract, Chris's contract, we get whatever we get. But I am not interested in Scott Jellison's raise. I've always been interested in saving money for the MDC, making us more efficient. 2015, the multitasking job descriptions changed the dynamics of this company, changed the way we do business. It's the reason why we've had 0% increases in our water and our ad valorem. And so I would suggest that I'm happy to have outside eyes looking at whatever we do, but thinking that outside counsel is going to understand the dynamics of how the changes that we made in 2015 and 2018 and 2022 was dynamic changes to the structure of these contracts, which in the last contract negotiation, we weren't looking to save money. We were looking to change the way in which we administer the contracts because you have 3 contracts with so many different rules within each contract that it was impossible for our administration, our HR, payroll, to become more efficient. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. Salimi?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, thanks. And I think that, it's, I agree with Scott that you're not going to hire an outside counsel that's going to understand the district, better than management at the district. But that's not the point of hiring outside counsel. They're actually hired to, work with either directly with the unions or with mediation and arbitration, or I think that there's a reason to have outside counsel, particularly when almost everybody else in the world has one. And we've had them before, and we've had them specifically to deal with mediation, arbitration, or we've had them to deal with specific issues. But I will say that Scott, I couldn't, I thought that the job that Scott and his staff did with respect to the multitasking things have really transformed the MDC, and I think that the evidence that it was a really great amount of work and did a really great job is that the unions have basically accepted it, and they've seen that it's actually benefited them as well as the district with respect to not just saving money but improving the quality of service that the district provides. I don't think that's what we're arguing about. But there are issues that I think that the board would like to be able to communicate with a labor council. And I will tell you that as the chair of the Board of Finance, I was here when and I asked that we have an OPEB contribution from the employees. And everybody said, well, nobody does that. But well, we might just be the first ones to do that. But, I think that they will see that this is as important to them as it is to anyone else. And so if you're familiar with OPEB, with what it's post-employment benefits, and, we actually negotiated with it. We asked for 1%. I think it was Bart Halloran at the time that worked. And we had a labor council, too. And we wound up negotiating 0.5%. Well, I think that understanding that that's what the board asked for and that that's something that the board, wanted to have for the district was to have its employees participate in this plan, then I think that's a way for Labor Council to, basically to help support what the board feels is important. And I think that it's not, I don't think it's out of line to talk about it. It's not necessarily associated with, only with negotiating the contracts. There are various things that happen all the time that have to have a response from the management, and it has to do with labor, with either one or all the bargaining units. We have the Labor Council, and they could do that. But that was what I was really looking for, Mr. Chairman. I'm not necessarily thinking that it's only associated with contracts or ultimately the contracting or reopen the contracts or any of that. I just thought that we benefited from having Labor Council all along, and we don't have to use them unless we want to use them. I mean, it's not like they're going to show up here every day like permanent employees. So,
Yes.
I would just state that unless Chris Stone is not doing a good job for us, and if he isn't, much as I like you, fire him. If he's doing the job, and every single commissioner here should, in my mind, think if he has a budget, he's getting paid to do a job, and that part of that job is to hire outside counsel when required. Unless I misunderstand his job, but I think that's what he does. So I think it should be put in his area of responsibility. I think for us to make that decision is saying that we don't think he's doing a good job and that he's capable of doing what he needs to do for the MDC, which, by the way, he gets paid for. So I think, personally, I would vote no.
Well, excuse me, since when did is this suggestion that,
Really?
that we're talking about Chris Stone is not doing a good job or whatever? That was not the reason for this being raised. The issue here basically is that we have situations with regard to this institution, this committee, and the board, where essentially we may need essentially to think carefully about having a disinterested third party. For example, if we are looking at the contracts of our senior staff here, these two gentlemen, who basically is going to be representing us in terms of looking at them and negotiating them? You need outside labor counsel for that. We are talking about contracts that involve a large amount of money. And essentially, we need basically the kind of appropriate legal support that can be provided by disinterested outside counsel. Okay, I mean, everybody around here seems to be talking about ethics and conflicts and everything else. But when we attempt to raise something within the context where we are dealing with the potential for really major conflicts, then all of a sudden everybody starts raising all sorts of issues. I mean, this is not casting any aspersions on anyone, but this is basically looking at the work that we have to do as a committee and as commissioners. As commissioners, we have a responsibility with regard to the contracts of our senior staff. It is not as if we are not paying them a lot of money. This is not to say that we shouldn't, but the fact of the matter is that we are. We need to have somebody that we can sit down that works for us and that we can examine those issues and make some determinations as to what directions we want to go.
So
Mr. Chairman?
what, excuse me 1 second, that works for us. Scott Jellison and our lawyer works for us. They work for us.
So?
Well, no, I'm just saying, you need somebody, he works for us, number one. Number two, I think he's a professional enough, both of them, that if they feel they have a conflict of interest, they'll back off and say, we need a lawyer, just like they did with a few other things where they had a conflict of interest and they brought in another lawyer. So do I think that they're disparaging on them? Yes, I do.
Mr.
But
Apatesian.
because the only one that brought it up was you, it wasn't brought up by this group.
Well, as chairman, as someone who basically has operated in major corporate settings, okay, I think that I have some insights and some views. All
I'm
right.
assuming some other,
Well, I'm not saying that other people don't, all right?
Oh, okay, so we don't know whether or not, okay, all right.
All right,
So,
I'm not saying
the
that other
usual,
people
okay,
don't.
all right, that's,
But the fact of the matter is that if we were negotiating a contract for the CEO or for the general counsel, who would do that?
we've done it before. What did Bart do?
We had outside people.
Every single time?
I don't think, well,
we didn't.
no, we didn't.
No, I didn't think so.
We didn't
Okay.
even think so.
All right, I'm done, thank you.
All right, but I think that it is appropriate for us now to take a look at that and to deal with that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if that's the case, let's specify that we are retaining this outside counsel to examine contracts with X, Y, these positions. And that's what we should do.
Mr. Salimi?
I think if we're gonna
Let me-
consider using
Excuse me.
outside labor
No,
counsel,
excuse me, please,
think that
I
we-
was speaking.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Yes, I was
He
not done.
I
recognized
thought
me.
you were finished, I'm sorry.
No,
All
I
right.
was not done, I'm
All right.
sorry.
He recognized me, I'm sorry, Commissioner. Go ahead.
If you find, for example, your CEO is not performing, then his contract leaves with the board. When we hire a city manager, who hires the city manager? Who determines their salary? It's council. And at that time, council can ask for an opinion. So if you want to have that specified, then examine that certain categories of positions, we will review their contracts. And that is fine. Because they work every day close to, and you may suspect whatever. But what I'm afraid that this thing can become a political tool for fighting with administration unnecessarily.
I don't,
Because the board and people who had big microphone can hire a outside counsel and directly push what agenda they want to push. And I hope that doesn't happen to this organization.
Salimi?
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if we're interested in having a labor council that we can assign any issue that we want that has to do with labor or collective bargaining at the MDC. I know that we have to limit it to anything in particular. But I would say that, this doesn't really have anything to do with, like if you were to support the idea of outside labor council, it means that you think that Scott and Chris are doing a bad job. I mean, I don't know where you get this stuff, Commissioner. But, you've done this and you've criticized our chairman enough times for me to believe that you have prejudice against everything that man says. And you've done it before. You did it with the 400-pound gorilla in the room statement, which I said if you were going to bring it up again, then maybe we should call CHRO and let them deal with it. And you did bring it up again in your letter to everybody.
Maybe we could go to the
You
chairman
did.
rather than
And,
attack other
I don't care. Listen, I have the floor right now. So I have to listen to you every time, and everything that you say is that, well, if you try to make decisions on your own as a commissioner, if you try to educate yourself as a commissioner, and don't listen to just everything that Scott and Chris say.
Point of order, Mr.
Nobody
Chairman.
has-
This is
where do you get-
Not a
inappropriate
member
for
of
this
this
committee.
committee, please.
You can object all you want.
I said
we
point
can
of
start
order.
talking about, the way that you manage your committee too. If we want to do that, we can do that.
Order, Mr. Chairman.
But I think that at this point, we have something to discuss on the floor. And it's not whether or not Chris Stone or Scott Jellison do a good job. You've heard me compliment them every time I talk about them. So it's not about that. And if you're going to keep that up all the time, then you're going to hear the same argument from me every time you say it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond or, no, it's okay, no, I won't respond, it's okay. Never mind. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
It's not okay with me.
Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman,
It's okay with you. It's not okay with me.
I spoke with our chairman before starting of the meeting. I think there needs to be some discipline and training of the chair also, because people with big microphone, they go on and on and on, and they don't stop. So some mechanism should be created to stop that, so that we don't have this shouting going on here.
Well, this was a discussion item.
Healthy one nonetheless.
Yeah, that was a discussion.
Make that as a number one item.
We move to item 7, history of retiree pension costs of living adjustments.
We're talking about perception, guys. Let's stop.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I asked to put this on the agenda, and because of time, of the meeting coming up in 5 minutes, can we postpone this to
Sure.
the next meeting?
Is there any objection? Item 8, I think that we have a handout here, which people can do if there are any questions. Anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
We just got this handout, so can you run through and give us, not this handout as a report, but the typical, who has left our employ and how many and why?
Yes, so for the, Jamie Harlow, Director of HR again, for the month of June, we had 1 retirement. That was the only thing to report, 1 retirement for the month of June.
How many years of service?
12,
Bradford?
white male.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Curry asked for us to add this information, which we're going to provide. You've seen this before. It's basically a whole synopsis of information I provided in the management study, and also I sent out emails. We'll start updating this and provide this as well. It provides a host of information regarding our CHRO and affirmative action.
Any more questions?
Just one. And I thank you for this, Jamie, but I'm a simple guy and I like to keep things short and to the point. So I had proposed like report on vacancies, report on open postings, and there's a list of 5. I just wanted a presentation, just like what you just gave for separation, 5 vacancies. Just, very short and brief that the commissioners don't have to spend. And this is a lot briefer than Scott's monthly CO report that it's hidden in there somewhere if you want to take the hour to read it and find it. So this is better than that. Yeah, I was looking for a report on vacancies, report on open posting, report on promotions, including process, new hires, including process, and report on number of open grievances and whatever little information you could provide, which is probably nothing, but on those grievances if we have any. Those were the 5 topics.
Okay, I will absolutely clean.
Short and
Perfect.
point, so we don't have to spend a lot of time digesting pages and pages.
I will add those items to the next written report that you receive. I'll take away the history part. That was more just, this is the first meeting that was provided, so I thought it would provide some additional information, and I will have that for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Moving to item 9, opportunity for general public comments.
Judy Allen, West Hartford. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but in the presentation that was made about the employee survey. There is no way this company is going to give you a copy of their surveys. That's their personal stuff, and without you buying it, you're not going to see it. And this company has applied for a bunch of copyrights. So again, they're not just going to give out stuff that is in their realm of the business that they do. Thanks.
Any more public comments? Commissioner requests for future agenda items? Yes,
This is,
Bill?
I'm looking at the budgeted positions. Our CEO has been telling us by combining the titles and reducing the numbers. But if you look at the total, it's not impressive. The form which you prepared, 489 to 438.
Sorry, Commissioner, I'm looking at what document you're looking at. Okay. Commissioner, that's 2018 to 2023. So in 2006, we've said we had roughly 700 employees. 86 of them were for CRA. We brought in, when we lost the CRA contract, we had to absorb 46 of those employees, and then the rest of them either stayed or was laid off. So since 2006, we have reduced our numbers dramatically. 2015, we had 573 or 578, one of those.
What are we, 424 now?
Because you were not, I
No,
thought you were referring recently.
yeah, we're 447 this year, 447, right? We were 438 last year, so we added 9 positions. So 447.
Tal, do you have anything else? Once again, Commissioner requests for future agenda items? Being none, I'll entertain the appropriate motion. Adjourn.